Hey guys, welcome back. We've got a brand new build series going. I really think you're gonna like this one. We've got a 1999 Suzuki Gixxer 600. It's a 110 horsepower inline 4-cylinder super sport. And we have a 2008 KTM 450 EXC with no engine in it. And over the course of this series, we're gonna be transplanting that engine into this frame with a little bit of help from some of my friends, including Santino, who you'll see shortly.
I'm Santino.
And I'm Lucas.
We're just gonna go over a couple stats here real quick. So we have our KTM here. At factory it's 250 pounds and our top speed is 90 miles an hour. It's a single cylinder up as opposed to 4 cylinders. We have 10,000 RPM red line. So when you're full throttle, that's 10,000 rotations per minute. At 54 horsepower at 9,000 rotations per minute. And then we have 27.9 foot-pounds of torque at 5,200 RPMs. So that's just a couple stats right there. We'll have Lucas talk about the Gixxer.
All right, with the Gixxer, it's a bit heavier at 384 pounds, but the top speed on this thing from the factory was 158 miles per hour. This bike, unlike the dirt bike, has 4 cylinders. That means that you have 4 smaller pistons moving a lot faster, means you can rev out a little higher, such as the 13,500 RPM red line. So you get an extra 3,500 RPM. And that's only the start of the red line. Maxed out, this bike can reach 16,000 RPM, while normal passenger cars only reach like 6,000 max. This bike from the factory put down 109.7 horsepower. Today it's probably making significantly less than that, but as long as we're above like 80, I'm pretty happy. I'm pretty confident it'll do that. So it makes this horsepower at 11,800 RPM, which you can see the dirt bike made 50 horsepower, 54 horsepower at 9,000 RPM. So you have to wring this thing out quite a bit more to get the power down. These sport bikes have a very aggressive power curve. You don't have a lot of power down low in the RPM, but as you rev it out, you get a whole rush of power. So, and then onto torque, you have 50 foot-pounds of torque at 10,000 RPM. Unlike the dirt bike's 27.9 foot-pounds of torque at 5,000 RPM. Though this sounds like a really big difference, the dirt bike makes this torque at half the RPM. And generally on dirt, especially dirt racing, you want to put that torque down quickly. That's what tractors you through mud or up hills. So the fact that we have to go double the engine RPM to reach the same amount of torque means that we'll really have to be wringing this thing out all the time. Hey guys, I'm here with my 2008 KTM 450 EXC-R. Take a look at this thing. So currently the engine has already been pulled out of it. This was because I bought this thing non-running from my old head mechanic, knowing it had engine issues. And I actually have the engine over here so we can see what happened to it. So here, this is the valve cover, and this right here, these are the lobes that open up the intake and exhaust valves. And right here, you can see this bearing has been melted out. So at some point in this bike's life, the camshaft did not get oil and it started to melt out some metal there. Along with that, you can see right here on the side skirt of the cylinder, you have a huge amount of wear also from the engine not getting oil, and the whole piston moves back and forth, which you really don't like to see. So unfortunately, when I first bought this thing, I thought I was gonna buy it, rebuild the engine, and get it back on the streets, because it is street legal. But unfortunately, it's just way too expensive to rebuild one of these old KTM engines. So that's where that comes in. What I'm most likely gonna have to do, so I'm probably gonna cut my bed right here and right here and take this whole subframe out, and then I'm gonna put the engine from the Gixxer on a little lift. I'm gonna lift it up into position, and I'm gonna weld a new frame around the engine. All right. Hey guys, here is my brand new to me 1999 Suzuki GSX-R 600. So, back in the day, this was one of the top of the line sport bikes, specially made by Suzuki. These things are built like tanks, and they were kind of awesome. But as you can tell, this one has seen much better days. So I'm gonna walk you through how I bought this and what you should look for if you're going to buy a bike. So for me, my biggest rule of thumb is I do not buy any bike unless I can hear the engine start. It doesn't matter if it doesn't start when I'm there in person, or when they've listed the bike, but I need to be able to crank it over and hear it start so I know that the engine has no mechanical issues. That's really the bare minimum for me. So a really common problem with old motorcycles like this is getting them to start. This bike and many others like it, so you can see, not that one, but those two, and that one, have a fuel injection system called a carburetor. A carburetor is a mechanical fuel injection system, and they suffer from an issue where the fuel will actually dry up inside of this fuel injection system and then clog all of the tiny little holes. That has happened to this bike. When I went to buy it, this bike did not start. The fuel in the tank is incredibly old, and the fuel inside the carburetors is incredibly old. So I'm gonna show you guys how I was able to get this bike started and confirm that the engine ran, even though everything in the fuel injection system needs to be torn out and rebuilt. All right, I already did a little bit of work to get started before filming, but the first thing I did while I was buying this bike was get the gas tank off of it so that I could get to the throttle bodies. Here, I'll grab you. You can see the individual intakes for the individual cylinders. Each one of these is a carburetor. Each one of these is what delivers and atomizes fuel before it enters the combustion chamber. So, since all of these are clogged up pretty heavily, none of them are going to actually deliver any fuel. So what I'm going to do is take a jump starter and jump start the bike. Actually start that right now. So now you can see I'm in neutral, so the engine will not move the bike itself. I have power on, and I have access to all of the intakes. Usually there's a large air filter right here, a air box. This bike does not have that. That was removed by somebody else. So luckily I just have direct access. After I gain direct access, you usually want to take something like starter fluid, but I only have brake clean. Brake clean and carb cleaner will do the job pretty darn effectively. Honestly, carb clean is basically the same thing as brake clean and starter fluid. So yeah, jump start it again. I'm gonna spray just a little bit into each one, and then I'm gonna hit the starter. Unfortunately, on this bike, you have to pull the clutch in. And that's honestly all I need to hear for me to be willing to buy a bike. I just have to hear that the engine is mechanically sound. And that's it.
All right.
Yeah. That's it for this episode. In the next episode, we're gonna start tearing apart the Gixxer 600. We're going to take the engine completely out of it, and hopefully we're going to get it on a little lift and set it next to the KTM dirt bike frame. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next episode.